To remain updated with the latest business news, click on the bell icon.
Hello and welcome. You're with us here on Business Today, and I have with me Amit Syngle. He is the head of Asian Paints, a company, of course, that really drives a lot of value and wealth creation on the index. And we're very excited to have you with us here today, Mr. Syngle.
Thank you so much.
Numbers, of course, revenues, as we've always seen consistently, up 25.6% this time, year on year. PAT down about 18% year on year. So, volume growth has still been strong, but what's led to the decline when it comes to bottom line?
So overall, when we see the quarter has been pretty good because the volume growth is something which we are very buoyant about, and we've got an 18% volume growth and about a 26% value. When we look at margins, obviously the gross margins sequentially have gone up given the fact that we took two big price increases in Q3, one in November and one in December, amounting to about 15%. Overall, PBDIT margins are also up from the last quarter sequentially, and they have gone closer to about 19% overall to that extent. So therefore, what we are seeing is a very strong and positive trajectory with respect to how inflation had hit us overall in the first half of the year. And with the price increases now, we think that we are well in control in terms of our PBDIT margins going up to that extent. And therefore, what we see is that I think the more thing to concentrate this quarter is the top line in terms of what we have looked at. The entire impact of the price increases we will get in Q4. Going to that extent, I think margins would definitely be not a worry in Q4 to see, and overall we expect good profits coming in Q4 as we kind of go forward.
All right. And do you see another price hike also coming in, given what we're seeing, of course, with crude on the boil once again?
So overall, what we see is that, obviously the inflationary trends have been quite unprecedented this year. And, as I've been saying that we've not seen this kind of inflation in the last about 4 decades to that extent. But having said that, what we see is that despite the crude going up, there is an upward movement in certain crude derivatives, but there is a lot of raw materials which are also kind of flattening out now to that extent overall. So what we see is that some inflationary pressures would be there, but by and large, it will be very, very mild as we see as a Q4 over Q3 to that extent. And therefore, there is not too much to worry about inflation going forward to that extent. And that is our prediction, that it would be mild and nothing which possibly really instigates to kind of take another increase.
Okay. That's good to hear. Domestic decorative business as well as industrial business, we saw good growth coming in. In fact, double-digit revenue on industrials, good volumes on domestic. Of course, auto continues to see pain. Do you see that segment picking up anytime soon?
So if you look at from the point of view of auto, I think the auto companies have been cautious about the builds and so on and so forth in terms of going forward. But I see that obviously, relatively speaking, the auto growths would be definitely much better in the coming year, given the fact that we are talking of a depressed base, which is the current year to that extent. So we are looking at industrial sales also to be very strong going forward, including the auto growth, which comes into that extent for the coming quarter.
Home improvement, which has been quite an robust trend, is that something that you see as a vertical driving growth for the company now going ahead?
Yeah, so it's been, I think, a very strong area of focus in terms of looking at home decor, and this entire movement of moving from a share of surface to a share of space within home has been a very strong initiative in terms of what we have taken. Overall, we have put about 29 stores across the country. These are beautiful home stores as we speak of, and they offer decor under one roof, which is basically all categories combined, whether it is furnishing, whether it is fabric, whether it is lighting, whether it is in terms of from the point of view of kitchen, bath, and related categories. So obviously, we are seeing a large impetus in terms of growth coming here. Kitchen and bath especially have done extremely well, both businesses growing upwards of 60% this year. to that extent. So what we see is that there is definitely a very strong kind of impetus coming in this, and we see that going forward, the home decor business should start contributing to a substantial 8 to 10% as a percentage of the total domestic business in terms of what we do to that extent. And therefore, we are pretty buoyant about in terms of how this trajectory is going.
Okay, fantastic. Do you feel perhaps, this wave, Mr. Syngle, and I have to ask because, just in terms of sentiment, how soon do you see us getting past this? Or do you feel that, perhaps with things now being very uncertain, that it's difficult to perhaps predict? Or are you confident that this will really blow over, let's say, in another few weeks or a month?
So the good thing which I see about the wave is that now we know in terms of how to handle this situation, having faced various waves earlier in the last 1 year and 10 months to that extent. What we've also seen that with respect to the paint industry specifically, it's not like a daily consumption which really happens to that extent. We have largely seen that people who are repainting or getting into renovation and so on and so forth to that extent, there is possibly a immediate kind of deferment of plan which really happens. The demand doesn't kind of really get skilled to that extent. And therefore, what we are seeing is that definitely in the month of January, you will see some demand which will come down to that extent. But our prediction is that since the whole impact is mild and people are now getting used to the overall, the variants which are there, we feel that, Feb and March, the demand should bounce back. And in fact, we should get a pent-up demand of January as well coming in Feb and March to that extent, which would definitely shore up the overall Q4 volumes and value as we kind of go ahead.
Fantastic. And just as someone who's one of the leading players in India Inc., Mr. Syngle, budgets coming around, anything special that you're expecting, whether it be for the industry or otherwise in terms of tonality, anything you'd like to leave us with today?
So overall, we would expect that the overall pace of growth with government accepting infrastructure projects, looking at basically accelerating the economy, looking at supporting the overall industrial sector kind of continues to that extent, because we are looking at that to be strongly kind of taking the GDP growth forward so that the consumption economy really kind of moves up to that extent. So we are looking at in terms of a trajectory which really kind of gives industry a growth thumbs up in a very strong way in terms of the way the spending is going to happen, in terms of basically the overall budgets are going to come in. So I think that's the expectation, that it will be a fairly positive budget, and looks in terms of a industry growth oriented budget which would kind of come in, which would kind of really boost the economy going forward.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mr. Syngle, for your time. Great to chat with you here on Business Today. Look forward to speaking with you again very soon.
Thank you so much for inviting me on the channel.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.